WomanUp podcast speaks to and about women and non-binary artists, as well as academics, writers, activists, midwives, carers and more. Those challenging ideas and ideals, questioning assumptions and provoking social change. It's a podcast dedicated to creating a living archive of these people and this work that anyone can access. We find those trying to change current structures founded on bias. Those working intersectionally across gender, race, sexuality, disability, as well as having caring responsibilities. We have conversations about lived experiences, achievements and aspirations, as well as fantastic artwork. In 2023, for Series 5, we received a National Lottery Project grant from Arts Council England to take the podcast on tour. I'm your host, Susan Merrick, and for this episode, I travelled down with our producer, Amy Dignam, to the seaside town of Margate, where we had an amazing live audience. Enjoy the episode. Hello and welcome to the WomanUp podcast tour. We're recording today in the beautiful Margate. Woo! As you can hear, we've got a gorgeous live audience here at the Fort Road Hotel, and all of this has been set up by our wonderful host, Liminal Gallery. Joining us today, we've got Louise Fitzjohn, Chinatree and Mercedes Workman. I want to start by introducing everyone, and we'll then have a chat about the Liminal Gallery, the artists and their work, and working as an artist in Margate. It's going to be around 45 minutes in total, and then we'll open for some questions. Okay, so the Liminal Gallery, I've taken this from the website, Louise, correct me if I get anything wrong.
Sure.
Historically, women and minorities have been widely underrepresented in the art world, and Liminal Gallery was created to invert this. Challenging the status quo, they represent contemporary artists who work in unique ways across the mediums, who are working across the UK and Ireland to showcase the many voices and diversity of the countries. They exhibit artists who deserve a spotlight in their tiny gallery, the smallest bricks and mortar contemporary gallery in the UK. Despite the size, their programme offers exciting and ambitious exhibitions, and Liminal Gallery stands as proof that size does not dictate impact. It's pretty cool. Yeah. So joining us here, we have Louise. Louise Fitzjohn is a Margate-based curator and founder of the Liminal Gallery. Alongside the gallery, Fitzjohn is a fellow podcast producer running the Liminal Gallery podcast series. She's also a visiting university lecturer and an arts writer, having written articles for Stylist, Big Issue, locally for Margate Mercury, as well as writing exhibition texts, most recently for Saatchi Gallery. Catherine is a Margate-based artist, multidisciplinary and visual artist who's interested in the representational idea of shared reality, with a focus on identity, dualism and cultural fluidity. Most of Catherine's inspiration comes from the outside world of every day, our daily activities, symbolism, rituals and the people she meets. Catherine was awarded, amongst many things, the Ferdinand Zweig, am I saying that right? Zweig, thank you. Ferdinand Zweig Arts Travel Scholarship Award. She was shortlisted for the Mercury Music Arts Prize, Nasty Women New York City, and the Griffin X Elephant New Graduates Art Prize. Catherine was also selected for the World Reimagined Artist Globe Commission, with the work being shown in Trafalgar Square in London. Mercedes, the artist in the middle here, is a ceramicist who is a studio holder at Tracy Emin's newly opened artist studios. Workman has been described as a maker in the truest sense of the word and a self-taught artist. In her recent exhibition, which we'll hear more about, ABC, the work was all made by Workman herself, along with her mum, using her mum's ashes within the glaze of her work, and making tiles with her children. Through her work in ceramics, a material often associated with the arts and crafts movement and the domestic realm, Workman reflects on how a woman serves. No matter what is thrown at her, she will provide. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Thank you for coming.
Pleasure. Thanks for having us.
You're very welcome. Louise, I'd like to start first of all by asking about the Liminal Gallery. For those who don't know it, any listeners we have, anyone in the room, when did you set it up and why?
So I set up the gallery in April 2021, and it started as an online gallery only. And in April 2021, I actually went on maternity leave, and I felt like if I was ever going to start up a gallery, then that was the time to do it. I mean, I don't know what I was thinking. I think it was like maybe pregnancy hormones, and I was just like, I can do anything. And so I set it up online, and I presented kind of 3-week exhibitions. It was called 3 Works for 3 weeks, and inviting artists to present one work each week, and I'd present an online exhibition with detailed images, and then I would write a text kind of scrutinising the artwork, and it was an attempt to slow people down. So I was really interested in this idea of slow looking, of the fact that our online attention span is like a few seconds. I think it's like 2 or 3 seconds. And so I was really interested in trying to slow people down. And it worked quite a lot. I got amazing statistics on the website. And then the opportunity to kind of do a pop-up presented itself in Margate. And I did one pop-up and I just fell in love with Margate. I kind of lived here for a year at that point. But having a pop-up and people coming and sharing their contacts with me and saying, you know, do you have an invigilator? Do you have a photographer? Let me share. And after 16 years of living in London, I was so used to that competition in the art world, which is just so rife, and especially in London. And coming here and just having a totally different experience was amazing. So then I looked for a permanent space, but my budget is very small. So I found my amazing little space, which is 6 meters square. It's tiny, triangular in size, and I love it. And so I opened that on the 1st of October. So that's been almost a year now since I opened the kind of physical space.
Amazing. Yeah. That's amazing. So Amy and I, Amy's been to Margate before. This is my first time in Margate. Loving it. Loved it today. And we went and had a look at Liminal Gallery and had a little peek in. And it's, very beautifully done and a really cool use of the space as well, I think. Yeah, really, really great.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've said in this, but the Liminal Gallery, is it because of... So there seems to be a connection with artist mothers, but which you haven't specifically said at all. Yeah. So is that because of the position you were in when you started it, or is it something that you wanted to really focus on with representing artists?
I think that I've done a lot of research since I knew that I was going to open up a permanent space, or since even before that, when I had the online gallery, I was researching a lot into kind of actual data, because people are saying, you know, it's a great time to be a woman artist, and actually when you look at the data, it's still abysmal. And if you look at artist mothers, I personally had experiences where I saw how discriminated artist mothers were, and so I just thought, you know, that's something that I really, really need to focus on. So that's something that I really have focused on, is supporting a lot of artist mothers, but also making sure that I don't close the door to anyone, because I do believe that diversity and inclusivity includes everyone. And so I make sure that on my programme I am presenting everyone, but I am working definitely more with women. Okay. And I'm doing that on purpose to readdress the imbalances.
Yeah. So that was why then, Catherine, I wanted to come to you, because you've just had a recent residency in motherhood, as it was termed. I don't know whether Louise termed it that way herself, in Portugal.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
I wanted to ask a bit more about that. Was it self-created, or is it something that you were commissioned to go and do? And has that experience influenced and changed the look at your practice, I guess, your focus in practice?
So I heard about this. So I always wanted to do a residency, but I also, with my son, also was thinking how I can do it for a length of time, not like a week or 2 weeks or something, like for 3 months. So kind of was like always having that in the back of my mind. And then I know, you know, the interview before Hetty Judah, I remember doing a talk, she was doing a talk and she spoke about this artist residency in motherhood. And I was like, oh, what's that? And looked into that, and it's Lenka Clayton, she founded it. So it's self-imposed, but kind of like there's still a community of people that are doing it. So it's an interactive map, and you can go on and you can find like, oh, so-and-so is doing it there, I'm doing it here. And it's quite, and I was like, got really excited. I was like, oh, there's no one in Sintra. That's why I did the residency. And there's like, I think there was no one in Margate. So and then you get on the map, and then you can connect with other people. So I thought that was a good space to do it under. So yeah, it was self-imposed, but I wasn't the only one doing this self-imposed residency. And you don't have to go abroad to do it. You can do it from your own home. But I was like, no, I want to go abroad, but I want to live like a lifestyle that I would live at home. So put my son in a cohort 3 months school, and then and did it like, so I didn't get a studio, I did it from the living room, from like our apartment, and did the work, and then also teaming up with Louise and doing the show, showing the work there. So there's two kind of changes to practice. One was being in Portugal with no idea of what I wanted to do on purpose. So really responding to my surroundings. I thought it was aligned with my work. And then also having this space that was different to, it's not a square for one. So how I could so both of those two kind of challenges did set my work onto a bit of a different pace, yeah. Which I really enjoy, by the way, with Liminal. I think it's great that, like, because it is different, that it challenges the artist to think, okay, how can I work in this space? And I thought that was quite exciting.
Where you were in Portugal, was that a seaside place as well?
No, it wasn't seaside. It was really, and that's the other reason I wanted to do why I chose Sintra, because it was basically Boundless, this education program who I went under. They have them all over the world, so it's like Greece, Mexico. You can choose your location and then enrol your child. But Sintra, because one, I love Paula Rego, and it was like just backing off from her museum. So I was like, wow, I've always loved her. Like, let me go and like maybe study her work a little bit more. Look at her colours. Look at the colours that are around me. Like if they inspired her. I know she lived in London a lot at the time, but still. So it was it's really green. It's super, super, super green. So it's quite different to Margate, to the seaside coat, like that kind of look. Yeah. It's just like lush, but then there's pinks, and it's like, oh, it's a dream.
It's gorgeous. Well, the work that's come out of it, I've only been able to see online, but it looks stunning.
Oh, thank you.
And actually, even though it's from a very, very different place to Margate, there's some lovely, lovely crossovers with the work that you've done here in Margate that really, I guess it really situates your practice as site-based. Whether that's intentional or not, but you see like the reflections of those spaces and those places and the people that you're meeting there in that work.
Yeah, and it kind of cements my interest as well a little bit, because I'm in a different place, but people kind of move in similar ways, and then I still got my interest in, say, like sea swimming and stuff. So when I go down there, it's different angles and different colours, but then maybe my interests are, they are quite the same in movements and in the shapes, and then in things like that. So, and water's just like, once you start with it, it's like, oh, can't get away from it. Yeah.
Thank you, Catherine. So Mercedes, the connection that I know of with your work and motherhood seems to be that you've taken a different angle in terms of working physically with your children, but also with the connection with your mum. Would you mind telling us a bit more about that and the recent exhibition, ABC?
So I suppose I didn't really properly come to art until I had children. I did a year in art foundation at Camberwell, and then I didn't go on and do a degree for various reasons. And I think that having children, I was just bored out of my brains, and being stuck at home on your own with a baby, as many people know, is not much fun at the best of times. So I felt that I just really needed to do something else, I suppose. And so I started, a really good friend of mine, she had a baby at the same time as me, and that people were making like handprints and footprints out their babies' hands and feet, or making casts of them. And I said to her, she's an artist as well, Emma Gibson, and I said to her, shall we make casts of our babies' bottoms? So we dropped our babies' naked bums into like bowl of alginate and then poured it with plaster cast, and we just came up with these like beautiful, they were just the sweetest thing I've ever seen. So I've got these like plaster moulds of my children's bottoms.
Amazing.
And it just like, they're going to hate us for it for a while, and then I think they might appreciate the value of it. But I just had these things, and as I said at the time, I wouldn't have ever called myself an artist. It was just, this was my output. I was covered when I had twins. So when I was pregnant with twins, I covered my body with a plaster mould, just to kind of capture that moment, and covered myself in paint and rolled around all over bits of paper. And I suppose it's like what Louise was saying about the time to set up an art gallery is on your maternity leave. I think it's kind of, you've just got this awareness that your life is about to change in a way that you can't imagine, or, no one can, I suppose. So for me, I found that through being creative, I was able to kind of liberate myself away from the feelings of being terrified about what was coming next, or the unknown, I suppose. So yeah, I started doing that, and then my mum died. I had 3 children. My twins are the youngest, and they were 2 when my mum died, and it was just before the first lockdown. She died in January 2020. So going into lockdown.
I'm really sorry about that, Becky.
Oh no, thank you. I mean, yeah, thank you. Going into lockdown was, it was an extraordinary experience for everyone. For me, it almost felt like the right thing to do because my whole world had become alien, I suppose. It was, it wasn't the same world that I knew. And then suddenly everyone was being told to stay inside, be locked inside. For me, it kind of felt like, well, obviously my mum's dead, so everyone has to now not go out, or is not allowed to go out. It just felt like it was weird, but it wasn't, kind of thing. So then I found myself locked inside with 3. I had a 4-year-old and 2 2-year-olds, and I just couldn't not do something with my hands. And I think it's that whole thing about idle hands. And it's interesting also, someone said to me once about being an artist that, did you have a choice? And I don't think you do have a choice. And I think that, however, or I guess also with what Louise does, it's that thing of like, you had to do that. That was something that you kind of get driven to do. And it's that you can't really stop yourself, can you? You just can't.
Your description in the exhibition notes really hit home for Amy, our beautiful producer who's here as well, and myself, because Amy's got quite a similar story, of which she doesn't mind me describing briefly, but the loss of her mum when she'd just had her 2nd child. Yeah, so literally within days of having, and that huge impact was basically started off the process of Desperate Artwives, which was the mother and parent artist platform that Amy started 12 years ago now. So there was just this need.
I suppose it's kind of the
desire,
loss of your mother, the loss of one's mother. It's really interesting also, if anyone's seen the Frida Kahlo documentary on BBC, they talk about when her mother died, and she was a bit older, and Tracy Emin also has talked a lot about when her mother died, which was a few years ago. And I think it's kind of, it will always be premature, the loss of one's mother. And I think that for me, I entered motherhood with a very ill mum, and then she died sort of just as I was getting into it. And I think that there's like I distinctly remember feeling a mixture of like I was free falling with absolutely nothing to grab hold of, and I didn't know where to turn or where to look, or what, I had no guidance. But then at the same time I felt weirdly liberated. So it was kind of like, I can do what I want now. Like, but also that I suppose I realised that life is so fragile and so short, and like, what the hell am I doing not doing anything or not doing what I want to do? And I suppose with that also comes an awful lot of guilt, because as an artist you're not necessarily making much money, there's not much stability, I guess all the things with any freelance job. I suppose with art you're also making something that no one wants, maybe. And I don't know if that's when you've got 3 children that you have to support, you're kind of like, what, why am I doing this again? Like, what is this? Like, is this? But then you're like, this is all for you. Like, is it? I don't know. It's not. I don't know. So I think that, I don't know how I just went off on a tangent on that one, but I think it's just needing something to focus on as well.
Yeah, and then creating a lovely body of work from it as well that you can be proud of as well.
Yeah, and I suppose using my mum's ashes it was a bit of an interesting one, because my dad, when I mentioned this to him, he didn't really say anything, and I had this idea that he probably thought I was just going to like end up making something really rank and like just wasting her. I think he just wasn't really comfortable with the idea generally. And then he said that he wanted to bury her ashes, so he had someone to go and talk to her, sit with her, which I hadn't appreciated. And then I sort of realised he also didn't want them to be split up, but my mum was ill before she died, so she was able to kind of tell us what she wanted, and she said that she wanted to be split into it was something like 27 different places, because I said I'd make extra urns for her.
Wow.
This is my mum. Wonder where I got it from. And but I think the point was it wasn't that she wanted to be in those 27 places. She wanted us as a family to gather in these 27 different places and think of her. So it's she's got family all over the world, and she's, so there was that side of it. And I think because of that, and after my dad kind of led me to think, actually, I want somewhere to go and sit with my mum. I want to, someone at the studio, Jack Hiron's at the studio, his dad died, and he spread his dad's ashes on a beach in Devon, where he comes from. He says that sometimes he thinks, like, I'm going to go and talk to my dad, or go and think about my dad. So he walks down to the beach and he just doesn't think about his dad, because then he kind of gets there and he's like, oh, I'm supposed to be thinking about dad, but you've just been thinking about like what you have for lunch, what someone said to you. And it's like that thing of like going to think about someone at a certain time, their birthday or whatever. It's not natural, it doesn't come. Whereas at the moment, my kitchen table is my mum's ashes, and my eldest daughter said to me when we took it from the exhibition, had our first breakfast, she said, it's like sitting with Grandma Rachel's lap. And I was like, that is an amazing feeling to kind of, so with all the arguments at home, with the happiness at home, with every single kind of thing that you have at home, you can think of her, she can be included, I suppose. So yeah.
Wow, that's really beautiful. I've got a quote that came from your thing, but I might save that for later. Louise, I want to go back to you and ask, what remains the impetus for you to be doing the work? I know we're only a year in, but when you've got young kids, when it's a lot of pressure, you're doing a lot of things, what's the impetus for you?
I think shining a spotlight on artists that I think really need to have it, to showcase, like, you see so many artists that are just not being given the time of day. And for me, I'm only one person, but for me it's really important to work really closely with the artists that I'm working with, and to not pick them up, work with them and then drop them, which is another thing that I see like repeated throughout the art world. And I think it's really detrimental to an artist's career. So for me, it's working with the artists that I think are working in truly unique ways. Like, I've been working in the art world for a really long time. I've seen a lot of art. I've seen a lot of really bad art. I've seen a lot of really good art. But the artists that I'm like specifically working with are just working in such unique and interesting ways. I truly think they've got something important to say. And I want to be a really fair gallery as well, a gallery that prioritises their artists, especially at the moment where so many galleries that you think are untouchable are closing down. And then it comes out that they're not supporting their artists in the way they should be. They're not paying them, their works are missing, they don't know what's happened. I mean, you just hear these stories repeated, and it's just, I think recently like 3 or 4 galleries, mega galleries, have just closed down and filing bankruptcy, and they get out of all of their responsibilities to their artists. And that should be their number one, is the artist. And so for me, opening up a fair gallery that really supports their artists and puts their artists first, that's my drive.
So on that note, how was it working with Catherine on the exhibition?
It was amazing. It was great, because me and Catherine, we met really organically. My first pop-up was at Crate in their kind of project space, and that's where Catherine has her studios. So she came downstairs, introduced herself, and we got chatting. And ever since then, I've come to your exhibition openings. She's come to all of my exhibition openings, and then said that she was going away on this residency and was looking for somewhere to show her work. And actually, it was like this kind of funny little slot, because I had booked off an entire month to go away on holiday for like a couple of weeks. I just thought, I'll come back, ease into it, and I was like, I've got this 2-week slot, let's do a show together. So we did. There was no relaxing. I went straight in and did a show, but it was really lovely, and it was really amazing to give Catherine that platform without being too controlling and saying, this is what you have to produce, this is how many works. I was just like, whatever you make, we can show. And I think it was really nice to be able to step back and just let her make work and not put any pressure on her, because I can't imagine how much pressure you felt going away on a residency and being like, I have to produce.
Yeah, so it was a good bit of pressure though. It was like,
Good.
okay, I've got to makes like X amount of works, which is good because it's driven me to like, okay, make these smaller works and make them quite organically, and just being like everyone can be different. No, it was good.
But also, I
challenge,
think I haven't directly worked with you yet, Louise, for Liminal, but I've got a show up coming in November. But also, I feel like, so maybe it is because you are a mother that you do also allow people to do what they want, so it's going to be more authentic. But also, you're supporting other areas and driving other opportunities for artists as well. That's something that I think you definitely do with. I've got an opportunity here, or with East Kent Open House and that kind of thing. I just feel like you're always on the lookout for the people that you're working with, and I think that's quite unique.
You've all talked about or touched on the community aspect of Margate. Is that felt by everybody? Is it a place where everybody feels really connected to one another, and is it like resource sharing, support sharing? Does it always feel like that as artists?
I think so. Yeah. I'm sure there's someone out there that's got a gripe.
Yeah, I think it does. I think maybe sometimes too much that you don't probably push yourself in places that you would because it is quite close, and you'll see people out, you'll see them on a Saturday night even, and you'll be this gallery, or that sometimes it's so close that you might not
want to be left alone.
Or you might not make that point where you go, oh yeah, I keep meaning to tell them I've got an idea, or share, you think, oh, I'll see them tomorrow. Or, but if you're in another place, you might see them. But I've seen that one time.
And there's definitely a pool of resources, like that you were talking about earlier, about how, I need someone to make me a film. I need someone to, can someone come and help me stretch some canvases? Whatever, who's got a career contact, whatever. And I feel like there's definitely someone knows someone that will help you, and then that person will actually help you.
That's amazing.
Which is, it's a really lovely thing.
We had a short walk around Margate earlier today, but I think it's, I haven't been everywhere in the UK, but out of the towns and cities that I've been to, which are a fair few, I would say that for the space that Margate takes up, it must have the most galleries compared to anywhere else. I mean, is that, or is it just like, I was like, I'm going to start, I'll take a little photo of this one. Oh, there's another one. There's another one. And every street, there seems to be a gallery or studio space of some kind, which is amazing, and amazing that there is enough interest, I guess, that can be sustained as well.
And there's so many initiatives as well, like Margate Now. I can't even think of stuff that happens now, but there seems to be. Margate's also every weekend is something. There's some kind of soul festival, or I don't know.
I can't keep up to date.
No, I know. Yeah, but it is also. Yeah, I suppose I wonder what the how many people here in the summer months compared to the winter months, and if the population size increases so much that it's
even like the Margate Mercury, right? You think at one point it's going to dry up, but it seems to keep do you know what I mean? But it seems to keep being full of new different things, different projects people are working on. I always enjoy reading that. Someone was like, oh wow, I didn't know that. Or this, even things that help creativity, like people that are doing running clubs and stuff that just gives you that extra bit to carry on with stuff. It's all that kind of side of it as well. Like the self-care stuff in Margate's pretty big. I think this goes hand in hand.
And I think also there's the people that moved here pre-COVID from London or from elsewhere, I suppose, that were so pre-COVID when prices were a lot cheaper, which obviously was people were coming here to set up organisations or do something that they had dreamed of doing because they were able to, and it's that kind of moving here for, I guess, economic reasons. And then after COVID, everyone realised they could go and do what they want elsewhere, so then that brought down a different drive of people. So I think it's kind of, you had the people who wanted to do the things, and then you had the people that wanted to be the people doing the things. You see? So it's like, you set up the gallery, now I want to go look at the gallery, and it's that whole, or do the running clubs, so it's just keep seeing this kind of wave being fueled, and then it's a bit of a.
I haven't quite caught through the conversations, but are you all? I get the feeling that you're not all from Margate. Are any of you from Margate, or if not, how did you end up being in Margate?
It's like the same story, isn't it? Wherever you go.
Couldn't afford to go anywhere else.
More space, seaside. I came from Kingston. Yeah, so I did my masters in Wimbledon, moved to Kingston, had a studio, and it's just like you're saying, this saying it. I came down to Margate once. It was like, yeah, that's it. And actually, do you know how I did it? Actually went to Broadstairs in Ramsgate as well. But I like them two places. But when I was in Margate, I said to myself, could I go to my studio now and work? Like, could you see yourself going into a studio and painting? And I was like, in Margate, I was like, definitely. And then I was in Broadstairs, I was like, no, I probably want to go in and have some crumble and watch a film. Like, so that's how I was like, that's good, because I feel like I could actually go in, I could see myself going and working. So that's how I was like, Margate's
so affected by your surroundings in that way. Yeah.
And it's so, I don't know, I love, like, it's quite retro. I felt it was quite retro, like, with Dreamland and even the toilet, like, when you come off the train, with the shape of it, I was like, oh, this has got something, like, aesthetically as well, it's pleasing. Yeah.
I'm from Kent originally, but I again spent 10 years in London, had a baby, and then couldn't afford to be in London, so we came down here for that, I guess, similar reasons.
Yeah, I think.
Although when I moved down here, I wasn't really. I had a 4-month-old, so I wasn't really working. But I did take a studio at Resort to do. I was working in arts and culture PR, so I did take a studio at Resort to do a bit of that. And then I got pregnant with twins, so I gave up.
You're like the early crew, though, aren't you? You're like the year.
Yeah, we've been here 9 years
That's
now. 9 years, and it's seeing how much has changed. And like, there wasn't really a cafe here when we moved here. There wasn't much. I didn't get that. I didn't get that same feeling of like the beautiful landscape. I was like, what the hell is this dump? No, but it was there. It's definitely, it's got that character, and it's also, the Turner was here as well, and the bleak Turner landscapes and skies. It's great.
And I moved here 2 years ago. I did lockdown in London, and I was right on the periphery of London, and I was just like, what are we doing here? And when things started opening up again, I came to Margate twice, and the second time saw like a commercial premises that was up for sale, and then it had a few apartments above it. I was like, I could buy that and open up a gallery, and that just I think that's what set things off, and then we moved here a couple of months later. Not into that premises though.
Wow. I wonder if it might be a good time to open up for any questions anyone has.
About art.
It can be about anything.
I don't have a question, but when you were talking, I made some notes because my memory's so bad. But I'm sort of like 20 years ahead, bizarrely, which is really scary because I kind of think I'm the same age as you. But I kind of brought here, I was a teacher and musician when my children were growing up because I was in London and I needed to work. And I think I put here, I think I've come to the realisation this evening, sitting here, that I'm filling an empty nest by exploring being an artist. So when you were talking about not having a choice and that drive and what makes you do it, I kind of think for me it was kind of like I suddenly had that space, I had that, and the amount of stuff you do, it must be a bloody big nest. but I do feel like I'm filling something. And I don't think I'd realised that until I sat here listening to you talk.
You had the space.
You know, and it is coming from being a mum as well, because my life's been full of being a mum and working as a musician, and because quite reliably paying the bills doing that and things like that. And then when they've become young women, I've been able to shift the focus, and clearly I'm filling this empty space. That probably, and that's the drive. I didn't put any more notes than that because I was listening, but I don't think I'd realised that before until sitting here. That's what I'm doing, and because I think I'm the same age as Mercedes, you see, and Catherine, really. But actually, I'm 20 years later, about 2 decades later, with grown-up young women.
There's a book by Jennifer Higgy, I think it's called The Artist in the Mirror. Anyway, it's a really good book about women artists, and she kind of goes through and talks about lots of different artists and their journeys becoming artists or not in their lifetimes. And that was really inspiring to me because she talks about artists that worked their whole lives and that when they died, they had that attics or lofts full of paintings, but now they might be someone that we would know, but at the time no one knew them. And although that sounds like a really bad way to be inspired, I actually just thought, you know what, this is actually what I've got to do. And I kind of put away that idea of making art for other people to necessarily look at. That to me isn't something that drives me. I don't think, oh, I want someone to have that in their home. If anything, it freaks me out that someone would want that in their home. It's kind of that have, making something because, when you were talking about your, when you were in Portugal, and also it's so interesting about how when you can work in Margate, because you're how you see relationships, and that's almost like you have to get that down as your communication, but then it's there for everyone, and then you can just leave it there. Do you know? Isn't it? It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
But you have to do it. There's no other explanation for it. You just have to do it.
Yeah, it's interesting what you say, because the premise behind my work isn't to make it for anybody else or to sell it. I just need to make it. And
exactly.
I've sort of referred to myself as an obsessive maker, but there is just a need to make stuff.
Yeah, and actually that's what I quite often just say to people. I just love making stuff.
Yeah.
But anything. It doesn't have to be out of clay or necessarily. I just love making stuff.
Just be making friends.
Do you know what I've actually recently? This is going to make you laugh. Read a book about being a housewife, and it was the history.
It's not a trad wife book, is it?
No, it actually is about the history of housewife.
Okay.
And I've recently separated from my husband, so I was kind of ironically reading it as in like, what mistakes have I made along the way? But I'm joking, by the way. I'm not. I have separated, but I'm not. I wasn't. Anyway, whatever, I'll tell you the story. So this book was actually really interesting because a housewife, only since the 50s, since we've had basically electricity in our homes, where you've had a fridge, a gas cooker, whatever, these things that have made all these things easy, that a housewife historically would have been, so here in Margate, we would have been collecting oysters, we would have been, like the home light, the light that we have, all like, where that came from was invented by a woman who was basically bored of making fires every day to see and heat. And so actually the role of a woman was fucking busy, but in a completely different way, in a very physical way, making, doing. And I think that there's so many ways that we can't escape what's inbuilt in us, I suppose. It's that nature thing where women are natural nurturers. But I guess because we have children, maybe because we're natural homemakers, I don't know. So as a female artist in 2023, you have to make something or do something, or I don't know. That was my theory. It's a fascinating book.
I would like to add the quote that you have on the ABC exhibition paintwork, if that's okay. I think that feels quite pertinent. Yeah. So this is a quote. Is this your quote before, or you can?
When you read it, I'll tell you.
Okay, thanks. That's a good point. So women are so often ignored. Expectations are put upon them to get on with it. ABC exhibition is my response to how overwhelming grief and motherhood are. Neither should be underestimated. Intimate relationships are impossible. Vulnerability is exposed. Liberty ceases to exist, trapped at home or emotionally. Physically inflated and deflated, swollen and then hollow. Financial freedom ceases with or without intention, and economic power is lost while you try to find the point in existence. Socially, no one understands, and the ones that do are seldom people you want to spend time with. The world seems on a new axis as you begin to tread an unknown journey into a new life. So it wasn't necessarily about being a woman, but it was that link of that power and those roles and where we sit, I think, on that axis.
Definitely, that is definitely my quote. I think it is just about being flung into a life that you weren't necessarily expecting, but you have to do it. I suppose you don't have a choice, do you? Again,
I think that could be linked to having kids or grief or becoming an artist. All of those things can mean massive change.
And they're very solitary roles, I would say. And I think, motherhood is very solitary.
I feel like it makes. I'm trying to think like how I navigate that a little bit with my practice, but I feel like it makes me a bit more accountable being a mum. like before, I was kind of a bit more floaty, like, yeah, I'll do it later, or I'll do it then, or I'll travel here first. And then I think, like, as soon as I was pregnant, I was like, I've got to do masters. Like, you know, because you're like, oh God, I've got to do it. Because otherwise it's gone. Like, if I don't do it and do it hard, then it's like, I'm going to do the mum thing and that's enough. And then it's just going to, like, go away. So it's kind of, I feel like it makes me have to work doubly as hard.
And you're more efficient with your time, I find.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
So-
yes.
Yeah. So I think that thing of fun, like at the studios, people always say that like, they don't really see me, or they see me appear and then disappear. And some people always say that I'm only ever running, because I literally run in on my days. I'm like, run out. And then, you know, because you know that you only have that time. Whereas when you, without the kids, you're like, oh yeah, cool, I can work till midnight. And again, you don't know what time you're going to wake up, or if you're going to be woken up in the night, or I don't know. It's not just you that might be ill, it might be someone else. You know, there's just so many more factors that can trip you up, I suppose. And also with all of motherhood and in grief. I mean, grief, that's a whole, probably another podcast for that. But yeah, you know, you don't know what's coming the next day. You don't know whether or not I'm being an artist. It's being human.
Yeah. Do we have any other questions from our audience or comments?
Louise, I was wondering what might have been the most challenging thing about setting up a space here in Margate.
So I'll just repeat that question if that's all right. So Louise, what might be the most what was the most challenging thing about setting up a space in Margate? Good question.
Great question. Financially, I mean, you know, setting up a gallery by myself, I've got, you know, no financial backers, just doing it. But I think that there's like some kind of unwritten rule in the art world that you're not allowed to talk about money, which just drives me absolutely mad. It's like, or motherhood, yeah. And I'm breaking all those rules tonight. and you know, I spoke to an artist recently and said something about finances, and you know, like the artists that I work with are not necessarily commercial. I work with them because I love what they're doing, I believe in them, and I want to support them. And I know that my space is small, so I don't need to constantly be making sales. My rent is quite low, so that gives me the freedom to work with artists I think are incredible. And so, but I said something like that to an artist recently, and she was like, well, shouldn't you just be doing it for the passion? I was like, passion doesn't keep the gallery open. Like, I don't know. There's just like this weird unwritten rule that you shouldn't be speaking about money, but you do have to think about money, you know, because otherwise I've got like a child to support, you know, I've got a house to run, you know, you've got to think about these things. It would just be so amazing if my passion could just keep things ticking along, then oh my God, it would be like abundance.
It comes along with if you tell people you're an artist and they say, oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
That's really nice. And then they might talk about, you know, are you free to come and help the kids, you know, next Tuesday or something. There's an assumption, and I don't know, because I am a woman, I haven't had the experience of being a man and being asked it, but I don't know if male artists have the same response, where I often have it levied at me, you know, a request to do something and then shock horror that you might want to be paid for it.
Or that you're not doing it out of vanity, not vanity, but like, oh yeah, that's really lucky.
Yeah.
Or I suppose it is really lucky, but it's that thing of like you're doing it because, I don't know, it is that whole...
And I mean, well, there's definitely, it's not always about being a woman at all, because I know local councils will approach any artist, or certainly in our area, and ask you to do, you know, a 3-month or 6-month project for £250, you know, and then they're surprised when you say that's not sustainable or affordable.
Wow.
Around the childcare.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And materials and day rates, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that people just love that, like that stereotype of the poor struggling artist, you know, but then you see people like, you know, Damien Hirst and Jeff Koons, they've just got like rolling around in money, literally, like their artworks just lose money. But then people really love this like little stereotype of this poor struggling artist, you know, that shouldn't be speaking about.
And they like to hate the Jeff Koonses and the Damien Hirsts as well for selling out and making money. So
Yeah.
I don't think artists can win.
No, exactly. Yeah, and I think it's the same in the gallery world as well. You know, like just as a gallerist, you can't really talk about it. But I think that's definitely one of the most difficult challenges. But you know, other than that, it's just a lot of work and just finding the juggle of like balancing everything out. Like you were saying, Mercedes, I feel like I'm just running into like a job at nap time. I'm just like running downstairs. I've got an hour just to hopefully
like, I'll be at the
to
gallery
do
between
something.
11 and 3, and then I've got to go back and get nursery run or school run or whatever.
Exactly.
But I think also it's I guess that's something in Margate that is being, well, I know children go to private views or galleries don't open because the gallery owner has a school run or something. You know, so I feel like there is also that flexibility, and it's understood and accepted.
Yeah.
Do you think that's become
Yeah.
a bit of a norm here then?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it has. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd say so.
Wow.
Yeah, funny opening hours and last minute changes. I think it happens all the time in Margate, but people are kind of used to it and tend to check social media before they go somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great thing to be
Well, it's great because
understanding.
it means that, you know, so many artists, regardless of whether they're women or not, have to have flexible schedules and have other responsibilities, either work-based commitments, other work-based commitments, or caring responsibilities. So flexibility works for everybody, I think. And I think
Well,
that's
it's not a
what...
9 to 5, is it?
No.
So I suppose it is that.
But is Louise? I was just thinking about that. The question about about setting up the gallery and things. But is there like a level of consistency as well? That so you can be flexible, but then I suppose as a gallery that's like opens its doors, it's liminal. That you probably have to have a certain consistency that's the same. That you probably have to keep up to that level. I don't know if that's always quite, because obviously different times you've got different things on, juggling different things. But even if you don't open at certain days, I suppose there's that level that you have to keep up.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
exactly. Yeah, the gallery is open like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and I try to make sure that those days I'm always open. But if my son gets sick, then you know, the gallery's going to have to be closed, or if I can't find someone to look after him, you know,
But
those
even
kind
in
of things.
emails or in the way things are delivered.
Oh God,
you know,
yeah.
everything,
I, like,
openings.
every single day, I'm like there on my emails
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
social
and I think
media,
you're really good
and I
with that
really
as
try
well,
to like
yeah.
keep on top of that and to always have a presence. And I'm also open by appointment, and I think that just, it's hard because you don't want to close a door on anyone.
Yeah.
Because I think a closed door, it puts people off straight away. So by saying you're open by appointment, it kind of puts people off. People don't necessarily want to get in touch to be like, oh, can I come in? Because then they feel like they need to buy something. They feel obliged to do something. So it's very rare that people ever arrange an appointment. But on the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I think it's important to have that consistency. But
Yeah.
Well, I actually last year I actually did an exhibition at my house because that was like a nice way to not have to worry about childcare, and also, well, I just could keep it all there, and so that was also. And I don't suppose anyone really batted an eyelid at that either. It was just.
I loved it, in
show
fact,
work.
actually.
Yeah.
Like, that really stayed in my memory, seeing that
Yeah.
exhibition, because it was just like so beautiful seeing your house, because your house is amazing. You've got an amazing mural on the side of it, and you walk in through the garden, just felt like really creative, like a really creative, lovely space. But then there was that really personal element of it being in your home, and it
Exactly.
it was a really special show.
And I think that's something that you know, also trying to find creative ways that we can meet as artists to support each other, whether it's
Yeah.
over dinners or something like this, or you know, and again, it's just I guess inviting people in. That's, and the advantages of living in a small town, as well as there's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that is a great place to finish, inviting people in to everything, I think. Can we have a big round of applause for the artists and curators? Thank you so much for being on the episode, and we'll let you all know when it's going to be published.
Amazing.
Oh,
thank you
thank
so
you
much
so
for
much.
having
Thank
us.
you.
That was lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for coming. Yay.
Thank you, lovely audience.
You've been listening to the WomanUp podcast.
To find more of our episodes, subscribe via any of the usual podcasting platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, and more. For captioned episodes, please visit the WomanUp YouTube channel. And for news and updates, follow us on Instagram at woman.up.podcast.